She regretted it the moment she stepped inside the cozy candlelit restaurant. The gentle hum of violin music, the low chatter of couples, the soft glow of amber lights, everything screamed romance, which was the last thing Aisha wanted to think about. She had promised herself no more blind dates after the last one ended with a man who bragged about crypto for 2 hours straight. But her best friend Sana wouldn't stop insisting. "He's different," she had said. "Trust me." Trust, funny word. Aisha used to trust life, people, love. But after being abandoned by her fiancé right before the wedding, trust felt like a delicate glass already shattered once, dangerous to touch, painful to remember. She slid into her seat, scanning the room nervously. Every man who walked in made her heart jump, only to settle again when he turned toward someone else. Minutes passed. 10, 15, 20. Her irritation grew with each tick of the clock. Was he standing her up? Her phone buzzed. A text from Sana. "He's on the way."
"Don't leave!"
Aisha sighed, swirling the edge of the menu with her finger. She didn't even know his name. Sana had only called him a good man who deserves someone kind too. If anything, that only made her more suspicious. Good men were often just men who pretended better. Just as she was about to walk out, the door opened and in stepped a man who didn't match the restaurant's elegance. He wore a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, faint oil stains on the cuffs like he'd come straight from work. His beard was trimmed, his eyes tired but honest, and those eyes locked onto hers as if he'd already been carrying her face inside his mind. He froze, startled, then walked toward her, nervous yet hopeful. "Aisha?" he asked quietly. She nodded, and he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. I'm sorry I'm late. Work emergency." His voice was gentle, warm, as if spoken from a life that had seen storms but still believed in sunshine. They sat. Conversation started slow, awkward smiles, safe topics, polite questions. He told her his name was Omar, a mechanic who owned a small workshop. She was surprised. Blind dates usually involved flashy jobs, bank statements as ego armor, but Omar spoke without trying to impress. He spoke like someone who understood nights that hurt and mornings that still needed courage. Aisha found herself relaxing, just a little. But every time she almost smiled, fear tugged her back. She didn't want to fall again. Not into hope, not into potential heartbreak masquerading as fate, he noticed. "You don't seem happy to be here," he said gently, not accusatory, just observant. She looked away. "I don't trust blind dates," she admitted. "I don't trust much anymore." Something dark flickered briefly in his eyes, an echo of his own wounds. "I get that," he murmured. "Sometimes life breaks you first before it gives back." For a heartbeat, they sat in shared silence. Not strangers anymore, but two people unknowingly stitched by the same thread of pain. Still, doubt lingered inside her like a stubborn shadow. Halfway through dinner, she made up her mind. She wasn't ready. She needed time, not pity. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, placing her fork down. "You seem nice, but I think this was a mistake. I don't think I can do this." His face fell, but not with anger. Just quiet disappointment, the kind that came from someone who hoped too softly. He nodded. "It's okay. You don't owe me anything." He signaled the waiter and reached for his wallet. She protested, but he insisted, not with pride, but with kindness. "You came." "That's enough." They stood. She offered a weak, apologetic smile, expecting him to leave first, but before either could move, a small, soft voice behind them chirped, "Daddy?" They both turned. A little girl around 6, with curly hair and big, tear-shiny eyes, rushed toward Omar. She wore a tiny backpack, mismatched socks, and a look of pure relief. "You didn't forget me, right?" she asked breathlessly. Omar's face drained. "Maya? Sweetheart, what are you doing here? Who brought you? You were supposed to be with Aunt Farah?" Before he could finish, Maya looked up at Aisha, tilted her head as if trying to recognize her, then whispered, voice fragile with wonder, "You're the one from Daddy's story." Aisha blinked, confusion swirling. Omar tensed, shock rippling across his features, as if a secret he never meant to reveal had just burst open on its own. "Maya," he whispered, kneeling, eyes wide and heart racing. What story? But the little girl only smiled at Aisha with innocent certainty, the kind that didn't lie. The girl Daddy always prays to meet again. Time froze. Aisha's heart stuttered. Omar looked like he'd been struck by lightning, caught, vulnerable, terrified, and hopeful all at once. The restaurant faded, the noise dulled, and suddenly, nothing existed except a truth hanging trembling in the air. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was going to walk away. Yet fate, it seemed, walked in wearing tiny shoes and mismatched socks, carrying a story she hadn't heard but already felt. And just like that, regret turned to a tremor of fate. Aisha didn't know the story yet, but she knew this wasn't just a blind date anymore. It was something life had been writing long before she sat at that table. Something that wasn't finished. Something she suddenly wasn't sure she wanted to run from. For a long moment, the world stood still as Aisha stared at the little girl whose eyes shone with certainty, like she had just announced destiny instead of misunderstanding. Omar swallowed hard, the tension in his jaw visible as he scooped Maya gently into his arms. His voice shook with a mix of shock and embarrassment. Sweetheart, Daddy never told any story like that. But the little girl giggled, tapping his cheek innocently. You always talk to the stars and say you miss her. You said one day Allah will send her back when He thinks your heart is ready. Her pure voice carried across the table like a whisper from fate, wrapping around Aisha's chest. Aisha's breath caught. Something soft and painful stirred inside her, an ache she thought she had killed long ago. She watched Omar's face turn crimson, panic and vulnerability blending into helplessness. Maya, he whispered urgently, that's not a story. That's just... He stopped, swallowing the truth that trembled at his lips. The girl rested her head on his shoulder with sleepy trust. But Daddy, you said she had sad eyes like she was trying to be brave. And she laughed like she forgot how to for a long time. Aisha froze. Those words cut through her like a warm knife through frozen memories. That sounded too much like her. Too real. Omar finally sighed, defeated, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I didn't realize she... listened. His voice was barely audible. He met Aisha's eyes, no longer the polite stranger, but a man exposed. A man who'd been carrying pain, too. My wife died 4 years ago, he said quietly. The air shifted. Aisha's heart dropped. Maya clung tighter to his shirt at the mention of her mother. It was sudden. I wasn't ready. I couldn't protect her. His voice cracked, raw and unpolished, like it hadn't been shared with anyone in a long time. I stopped believing good things could happen. I stopped believing I could be someone worth waiting for. He looked down at his daughter. Except she never let me stop hoping. Aisha felt something crumble slowly inside her. Loss. She understood that language better than words. Her ex hadn't died, no, but betrayal could bury a heart too. She thought she was the only broken one at this table. Yet here he was, quietly holding the pieces of his own ruins. The restaurant noise returned in a distant hum, lights softening, turning everything almost dreamlike. Maya rubbed her sleepy eyes, leaning toward Aisha as if drawn by invisible strings. When I saw you, she murmured, tiny voice thick with tired certainty, I knew it was you. Daddy's heart lady. Her simple words wrapped around Aisha's ribs, squeezing until her breath trembled. Aisha's instinct screamed to run, because this wasn't casual, wasn't light, wasn't safe. This wasn't two strangers sharing dessert. This was a child offering her father's heart in fragile hands. But her feet wouldn't move. Something steadier than panic held her still. Omar cleared his throat awkwardly, eyes pleading for understanding, not pity. She's imaginative, and I talk to Allah when I think she's sleeping. I never meant for... His voice broke again. I didn't bring you here to put weight on you. I didn't even know Sana would give her my blind date. He gently stroked Maya's hair. I didn't plan for tonight to mean anything. Yet the truth sat between them. Loud and undeniable. It already did. Aisha knelt slightly so she could face Maya. You know, she whispered gently, sometimes Allah sends people to remind us hope still exists, but only so we can heal first. The girl blinked, sleepy but thoughtful. So you are her? The tiniest hopeful crack in her voice made Aisha's chest burn. Maybe, Aisha said softly. Or maybe I'm someone who needed to hear your story tonight. Maya nodded like she understood more than children were supposed to. Omar watched, stunned, like seeing the world shift without being able to stop it.